Are you sure there's no way that we can play you guys at all? Because honestly, you were kind of our last resort for this upcoming international window.
We cannot travel that far.
No?
Sorry.
Okay, Andrew's going to be really annoyed at me for this. But what if we come over there and play you?
Really? You would do?
Yeah, seriously. We're kind of desperate. I've left it a bit late this time. I was busy with Auckland A-League things. So we could do an African tour and come visit you guys.
Oh my god, you can make a tour of it perhaps.
Yeah, we can throw another game over there in there.
Lock it in.
Awesome.
Hopefully you are safe during your time here.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure your country is fine. It can't be that bad.
Thank you so much.
Okay?
Thank you.
Sweet.
See you soon.
Awesome. We'll see you there. First friendly done. First away one. And we're on a winning streak. Hopefully Andrew doesn't find out.
Party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 13 of the New Zealand Builder Nation here on Shaun Does FM with both the All Whites and AFC Auckland coming up to a bit of action from both of those teams on camera. We played two A-League games with the Auckland team against the two Westerns. First up, we host United, and off the back of transfer deadline day and an international break, it's a bus trip before we take on Western Sydney Wanderers, who finished just behind us in third last season, so I'll be looking forward to that, as well as highlights from the All Whites games, which do feature trips away to Africa to take on Benin and Equatorial Guinea. Then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated, but we've played quite a bit of football off the back of the first episode of the new season with the Auckland team yesterday, where we revealed our transfer activity and then took on one of the new boys in Sydney Olympic. If you missed that one, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner, quite important if you want to catch up with some of the new faces in this team. Thankfully, started off the season with a thrashing of Sydney Olympic, and to be fair, our first month in the A-League did look pretty easy, and thankfully that is how it did work out off the back of that 6-1 win over Sydney Olympic. We then had what was probably on paper our toughest match in this first month of the season up until Western United. That was Adelaide United away from home, and despite the fact we didn't actually play that well in that game based on the highlights that I saw, thankfully quite efficient with our shots in front of goal, getting most of them on target. An early goal to Tormein, backed up by a penalty halfway through the first half, coming back in the team after being rested for that first game. Then Adam Mitchell scored one more from a corner just before halftime. Second one was pretty quiet, and we picked up a comfortable 3-0 win there over Adelaide United. So a good start to the season there. 2 wins from our first 2 games, and as you'd expect off the back of that, taking on 2 more teams who were new to the A-League. That continued, albeit Avondale were a team who did beat us last season in the Australian League Cup this time. That didn't happen. A very comfortable 5-1 win at Mount Smart over those guys. As you can see, complete domination. 2 goals to Ronald, then Gwavine Tormein, Ihataran and Hassan Jallo off the bench. They also chipped in. We conceded 1 just after scoring our second through Tormein from the penalty spot, but apart from that, Avondale did not offer too much, and we get some revenge on them from last season. Made it 9 points from 9, and then made it 12 from 12 when we took on South Melbourne. These guys won the second div last season to come up to the top tier, but this was a 3-0 win yet again, kind of like the Adelaide United game. We're in our best, and it actually took us a while in this one to get on the score sheet, but as you can see, South Melbourne, 0 shots on target. We have 5, and thankfully 3 of them did find the net through Havalius Tormein and Nathan Lobo, with a real stunner there deep in injury time to give us a nice 3-0 win. And also, we played our first game in the Australia Cup, this one against a team called Heart of Melbourne, who are well down the pyramid and play at a stadium which isn't real, so we couldn't really do a bus trip for that one, even though, in theory, some teams this far down with real stadiums, that could be quite a bit of fun. But fresh, these guys 4-1 with a heavy rotation. Hassan Jallo picked up a double, and Ronald off the bench also picked up 2 goals as we secure a 4-1 win, albeit we're behind briefly there in the first half before Hassan Jallo did score his first goal. So 5 runs from 5 to start the season here at AFC Auckland. It does mean we are through the third round of the Australian Cup that is coming up in early October, albeit might not be a game that you see, albeit something worth noting about the Australian Cup, we were able to buy the hosting rights off the Dandenong Thunder for that game. It came up in the inbox that was an option and we could do it because we would have given both clubs a lot more money by hosting it at Mount Smart than if it got played at the George Andrews Reserve, so it did feel like a good option there. No doubt that will trigger everyone playing in an English lower league save, because that would be quite a handy feature to try and get some money into the club, but it's going to be the Dandenong Thunder who profit from that one. They are in the third tier, which is actually quite a brutal one, as you can see, the National Premier League Champions League, where the top 3 teams go up to the second division and all the rest get relegated down one. So it's a very brutal division, that third one in this Australian pyramid, but they're mid-table, early stages. Hopefully that is a team we can beat and make our way around further in that Australian Cup. But today, the focus is on the A-League. Either side of transfer deadline day, we take on the 2 Westerns in Western United. That one at Mount Smart, built up a good record against those guys last season before taking on Marco Rudan the Snake and Western Sydney Wanderers, the team who drew with us on the final match day of the season when we needed a win to lift the A-League title, albeit Central Coast winning stuffed us out of that anyway. And in between those 2 games as well as transfer deadline day, there are some fixtures for the All Whites. I left it a bit late to schedule these 2 this time, and that's the reason that we're away, because no teams wanted to come to New Zealand and take us on, obviously, seeing as we are now the AFC Nations Cup champions and just storming up the world rankings these days, 96th, but a trip to Africa to take on both Benin, those guys, 86th, so just above us on the world rankings, and off the back of that, we then take on Equatorial Guinea, and those guys are a bit lower down, equal 91st, definitely some scalps there. I'd like to think we could take, albeit away from home. That might be tricky, but we come to this one in a really good patch of form. It's now been quite a while since we did lose a game with the New Zealand team. As you can see this year, that is 7 straight wins, and going back to late stages of 2023, we picked up 2. So we could hopefully, in today's episode, having picked up 11 straight wins with the All Whites, but potentially more importantly, we want to also keep a good winning roll going with AFC Auckland and stay on top of the A-League off the back of that hot start that we have had so far. 12 points from our first 4 games, and a very good goal differential does mean at the moment we are above the Melbourne Victory, albeit Sydney FC, Western, Central Coast are all within striking distance if we do slip up during the course of today's episode. And also, before we play this first game against Western, a bit of an update on the players who do want to leave, or we're going to look to shop out around deadline day. As we mentioned in yesterday's episode, Mohamed Ahataran and Stefan Marinovic, their contracts are expiring and neither of them want to sign a new one. So those are players we're going to try and get rid of and maybe replace during the course of today's episode. But also Hassan Jallo, he now wants to leave as the backup striker. I feel like he's someone that we can replace. We'll see if a decent bid comes in for him. He might be another player who does depart the club, maybe can find a good first choice striker to come in for him instead. So it could be a few moves during the course of today's episode, but hopefully not on the A-League table. As first up, we take on a Western United team. As I said, we built up a good record against last season, albeit they've started off this one in much better form. 3 wins from their first 4 games and a draw against Sydney FC. That is not bad form at all, but hopefully with this one being at Mount Smart, we can pick up a good result. And one more thing before we do get into this game, we do have an injury coming into this one. Unfortunately, Adam Mitchell has picked up one since you were last here. He's out for 6 days to 2 more weeks, having suffered a twisted ankle, so it does mean he'll probably be missing for both games in today's episode, but thankfully that's our only injury concern. It does mean our young Cypriot centre-back can get a start alongside Lucas Nunez in his place, but hopefully we can maintain that unbeaten record against Western United and stay on top of the A-League. And here are the team sheets for this first game. In today's episode, obviously the injury to Mitchell does mean that Victor Ross will start alongside Nunez at centre-back, but also Jack Henry Sinclair at right wing. Ronaldo goes to the bench on a heavy workload, quite injury prone, but apart from that, we are at full strength. Western United also going with a 4-2-3-1. This our toughest test so far this season, but at home, hopefully we can pick up 3 more points. And just making our way into the last 5 minutes of this first half, and this has so far been an awful display from us. No shots at all. Western United were on the front foot, but thankfully, no highlights in that first half, at least in terms of us not losing. It's 0-0. That was a woeful first half, definitely the worst we've had so far in the save. Of course, it happens in a camera game, but both our centre-backs have picked up yellow cards. So because of that, I'll take them off. We'll take off Victoros for Havales, and Teo Atema can also play centre-back as well as defensive midfield. So they can play centre-back for the second half, and also Jack Henry Sinclair going fairly so far this season. Ronald can come on for him. Hopefully our star player, best player in the A-League, won't get injured, but we'll tell the guys not good enough so far, and hopefully get a reaction in the second half and get some highlights, as it's still 0-0. And coming up to the hour mark, and would you believe it's still no highlights in this game, which is not ideal for making content. Still no shots from us either, so because of that, we'll take off a Fergiani Bazookas for Hassan Jallo. And thankfully, we finally get a highlight in this game just shy of the 70-minute mark. That took a while, and we win the ball there down our right-hand side. Lonald has picked up a yellow card. Hopefully, he'll be okay on that, easing off tackles, but this might be a chance for us here to hopefully score a goal in the only highlight so far of the game. We make our way down left-hand side to Bungo, plays that to Malk, back to Sullivan. Ronald does take on the shot first time with his left foot, but unfortunately just over the bar, and off the back of that, I think we'll make our final sub. Tormeen struggling this time on a 6.4. Mohamed Hataran so far done a decent job at left wing. We'll see if that continues, as it's still 0-0. And the dullness continues. About to make our way into the last 10 minutes of this game. Still no shots on target from us, which is really poor. Used all our subs. It's now time for us to go a bit more attacking with our wing backs. Also the mentality, go wider and also up our tempo. Hopefully get some highlights and pull out a winner.
Yeah.
And disaster for us here right off the back of trying to go more attacking. Ronald has got injured. That could be a dagger blow, especially with the form that Jack Henry Sinclair has been in so far this season. All our subs use, so because of that, we're going to try and get us now to focus down the left-hand side, but down to 10 men for these last couple of minutes. We'll stay attacking. Hopefully, it won't bite us, but big chance here for Western United to kind of steal this one, albeit we haven't done too much. Not too sure if that would be the case. We do have the ball there from a throw in late, but thankfully Western United get it back, then pump it deep. We can tidy things up at the back. Hopefully play things smart here. Go to our left-hand side, albeit looks like we're going to do the complete opposite. And Cullen Elliott makes his way down that right-hand side. This does seem like a pretty stupid idea with him on a red heart, but Western United, they head that one away. Now Debungo tidies things up though. Hopefully we can still get a chance here late in this game. Sullivan plays one over the top there for Hassan Jallo, was offside and put it over the top anyway. And it looks like that will finish one of the most boring games of Football Manager 2024 that I've played so far on this new version. It's a 0-0 draw. To be fair, got a bit better I think in the second half of that game, considering we're the team with the black in that match momentum, but no shots on target. Pretty hard to win a game if that is the case. To be fair, Western United had no highlights of their shots, must have been pretty tame. Alex Paulson must have dealt with that now. Just going to see how bad this injury is to Ronald. Hopefully won't keep the new best player in the A-League out for too long, but that's not a great start to today's episode. Thankfully, for now, we stay on top of the A-League off the back of a very, very boring 0-0 draw against Western United. And back in the inbox off the back of that very dull game for an injury check, and it's not a good one. Ronald is out for 7 to 8 weeks with a torn groin muscle. To be fair, just before an international break, not the worst time for it to happen, because it does mean we're not playing a game for 2 more weeks, but still, that is a bit of a blow for a player who so far has looked decent. 4 appearances, 4 goals, and an assist. Supposed to be the best player in the A-League. Jack Henry Sinclair needs to come in for him. Hopefully can do a decent job like he did last season. Might also mean that Mohamed Hataran can now cover right wing as well as left wing. But that's a big injury for us. Hopefully won't prove too costly. We'll come back shortly if anything happens on deadline day, and with a recap of the All Whites fixtures over in Africa before a bus trip to Western Sydney Wanderers. And we are back about to take on Western Sydney Wanderers in the second game of today's episode. Hopefully we can get back on track off the back of that boring draw that we did pick up against Western United. First things first though, nothing happened for us on transfer deadline day. Mohamed Ihataren as well as Stefan Marinovic and Hassan Jallo all still here at the club. Thankfully, they have dropped some of their issues, so it does mean club atmosphere is a little bit better, but we do now run the risk of losing Ihataren and Marinovic on free contracts coming into this season, seeing as they both don't want to stay at the club. Also, team cohesion has gone up. Not that you'd know it by that first performance in today's episode, but we did play 2 international friendlies off the back of transfer deadline day. In the most recent international window, it was a trip to Africa for the All Whites, and we picked up 2 wins. Won't show you guys the highlights because quite a few goals in this game. First up, a 2-1 win over Benin, the toughest of our opponents in that window. We were well on top in this game too, but did threaten to get FM'd, as you can tell by those stats. Early goal there to Callum McCowart. They grabbed one right back just before half-time with a bit of help from the woodwork, but thankfully early in the second half, Joe Bell strikes one from just outside the box, and we pick up a 2-1 win there against Benin. So good to see now we can pick up wins on the road, seeing as that's something we haven't really done too much so far with this All Whites team, albeit it is helping, seeing as we're playing teams around us on the world rankings. Does mean we can string some form together, and thankfully that did continue when we took on Equatorial Guinea, a team who were just below Benin on the world rankings. Actually rotated a bit for this game. Thankfully, didn't hurt us too much as we picked up a pretty comprehensive 5-2 win. Early own goal. It did look like for a second there that the Engraver's Nightmare and Hammond Chambers Borgness was going to score his first goal for the All Whites, but it took a deflection, was given as an own goal off the back of that. Sarpreet Singh scored one. They grabbed one back right off the back of that from the kickoff through Dorian Jr. 2-1 at half-time, but in the second half, Sarpreet Singh completed his hat-trick. Of late, he's been in great form, one of the best players for the All Whites, alongside Matthew Garbett. They grabbed one back through Yosetti Miranda, but that was off the back of Marko Stamanic, also grabbing goal in the second half off the bench, and we pick up a pretty nice 5-2 win. So the Gegenpress working there over in Africa in 2 straight games, and it does mean we rise up the world rankings ever so slightly up to 92nd, so starting to make our way now towards being a top 90 team after at one point last season dropping down to about 103rd, I believe it was, making our way up the world rankings. And coming up in the next couple of windows, we do have World Cup qualification. Should be some quite winnable games there against Papua New Guinea and Tahiti, teams that we bet in the AFC Nations Cup episode a few ago. Hopefully this time though, don't get that early scare from Tahiti. And also in and around that, Thailand wanted a friendly. It's away, but I thought we could take them on, seeing as they are below us on the world rankings, and also they play at the Thunderdome Stadium and are called the War Elephants. That should be an interesting time for us off the back of that Tahiti game, albeit we could be focusing on that one a bit more than the Thailand game, which could make things a little bit interesting. In fact, it's not Tahiti, it's Papua New Guinea we take on in that first World Cup qualifier. But next up for us, with AFC Auckland off the back of that international break and with our squad intact, we take on the Western Sydney Wanderers, a team who we drew from the final day of the season last year, but did beat 3-0 at Mount Smart Stadium earlier in the season. They finished just behind us in third on the A-League table. So far this season, their form has been a little bit mixed. They're down in 7th with 2 wins, 2 draws, and a loss. That was in their last outing to Sydney FC. So hopefully, based on their form so far this season, this is a team we can beat, albeit they were predicted to finish second, a bit higher than we were expected to finish here at AFC Auckland. But last season, seeing as that game was quite a big one, didn't bother with a bus trip this time. We'll get one done as we go to CommBank Stadium, albeit before then. Injury update, of course, no Ronaldo for the second game, but Adam Mitchell's back, albeit only recommended for 45 minutes. And it does mean we're going to have to put out a rotated centre-back pairing, seeing as Lucas Nunez, too many yellow cards, so he is suspended. So missing a couple of players for the second game of today's episode. But before we get stuck in to this one, time for a bus trip to CommBank Stadium in Western Sydney. And because for these bus trips, we do start off with finding a hotel, and here in Parramatta, aka Western Sydney, we have found quite a nice rated one in the Meriton Suites Church Street. It looks quite tall, has pretty nice looking rooms, and it has a nice swimming pool on the top floor. It looks like a very good time for us while we are here in Western Sydney, about to get ready to do some snake sniping. There you can see it's got a sauna as well. That should suit our guys. Get ready for a big game. So that is where we're going to stay for this bus trip, and we do head to CommBank Stadium. To be fair, not a very big trip. It's only a 4-minute drive, around about 1 kilometre. We do go over a river if I can do that, because I've had issues with that on bus trips in the past, driving off the bridge, but not a big trip, but only a few things to look at on the way. But we start off outside of our motel. There you can see, or suites I should say. It's a very tall building, bit hard to miss it. Should be easy to find that one after the game if we do get on the source a little bit, but it is a massive high rise. That pool must be a long way in the air, but we'll start to make our way towards the ground and stop in on anything that looks interesting. And this isn't a very good start to our trip because there's a bit of construction quite close to where we're staying. This has happened twice in the past, and both times we played pretty averagely off the back of that. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come here when we do take on the Western Sydney Wanderers. Hopefully we still play quite decently and keep up our unbeaten record, but so far not too much going on. Having gone up the road from that construction, starting to find a bit more here in Parramatta around where we're staying. Commonwealth Bank there, so the boys can get all their money out that we're paying them here. At AFC Auckland, also next door, there's a coffee shop in the Bean Chamber. That's probably the morning spot for them after the game. But really, that's about all there is. Also a Westpac, which could also be of use to them. That bank's here in New Zealand. Some building, which to be fair, there's the nice crest there for Australia on it, I believe that is. But so far, that's about it here on our way to the stadium. We'll keep going down. And I think next up might be Old Government House, if we can get a decent look at it. But we have found something before then down at the end of the street, the Parramatta Children's Court. I'm not too sure what happens in Australia with the justice system, but there's the Parramatta Children's Court on our way to the stadium. Hopefully they don't get let out and throw water bombs at our bus or something like that. And it's starting to get quite close to the stadium. As you can see, the big overhang of the stands, but I was going to look at Old Government House. Unfortunately, lots of trees in the way, so can't really get a good look at that, so unfortunately can't stop there. We'll start to make our way over the bridge, over a river apparently, if it will let me Google Maps, because so far this has been an issue with me trying to drive on these bus trips. Sometimes can go into the water. We'll see if that's an issue here. Hopefully, if we do, the water's not too big, but thankfully this looks like a half decent bridge. I think we can make our way over it. We do. Everyone's alive. Don't worry, Hassan, Stefan, or Mohammed. You can stay at the club now. I've learned how to drive a bus, and I'm not exactly sure how we get into the place. In fact, that might be it there, albeit not really any entry or a bus. This is a bit concerning. We'll have to get out here on the side of the road and walk into the stadium. But there is CommBank Stadium. There you can see it from the outside. Got some basketball/netball courts around it. But there's a bit of the signage. We are here at our venue for this game. Hopefully can pick up some points from it like we did late last season, but it doesn't look like at the moment there's any access for bus parking. So we're going to have to walk to this one from the side of the road, giving us the visitors treatment. But from the outside, it looks like a decent stadium. Back there a bit, there was an entrance that had a cafe, so they've actually got some stuff there on the outside of the ground, which looks nice, unlike good old Suncorp Stadium from our first season of doing bus trips. There it is. There's a Hoops Coffee House, which must be referencing all the basketball/netball courts on the outside. But I think we'll now try and get a look at the actual entrances of the stadium itself. And I have eventually found a parking lot here, just not too sure exactly how you're supposed to get into it. But here's another view of the stadium that we're about to play at. It's quite a nice one here in Parramatta. Pretty sure it's the home of the Parramatta Eels in the NRL as well. There's a speed bump we can go over. But there's a look at Gate D. To be fair, the outside of the stadium looks quite similar from most angles. And in fact, the first view that we get of the stadium is an aerial one. So this is quite good to see around the outside of the stadium compared to what we were doing before. But to be fair, it does look pretty similar all the way around. As I said before, there's the car park, that we were just in. But there is the stadium, quite a modern one, quite cool lighting as well that they do put on before the games. But this is a nice stadium. Hopefully we can do a decent job here against the Wanderers and pick up 3 points. Just try and find a view from inside it now. And I think this is the best I can do for inside the stadium. It's right middle of the park after a Parramatta Eels game, which is why everyone is wearing blue and yellow, mostly the colours of the Parramatta Eels. But here it is, as I said, quite a nice stadium. Bit of a shame it's in rugby league mode. Does look like they were taking on the St George Dragons on this day, but there is our ground for today's game, and hopefully we can keep up our early unbeaten record against the Snake and Western Sydney Wanderers. And here are the team sheets for the second game of today's episode at CommBank Stadium. There are Western Sydney, still going with that quite defensive 5-2-1-2/5-2-3. Here we are, a couple of changes. Obviously Sinclair at right wing with no Ronaldo. Also Havales and Victoris as the centre backs, with Mitchell only recommended for 45 minutes and Nunez being suspended, but Mitchell on the bench as is Azumi, seeing as we've got no Ronaldo. So a couple of changes, but hopefully we can pick up a decent result and keep ourselves near the top of the A-League. And thankfully we managed to get some highlights in this game. 8 minutes in the first one, we were on the attack there briefly. Unfortunately though, chance here for Western Sydney on the counter-attack. They are in the white, we are in the all black, and it is here Badalato who plays that one back to Klur. Quite a good left back. They get a header off there at the far post, but thankfully nothing for Paulson to worry about, and it's still 0-0 just past the 10-minute mark. And only a couple of minutes on from that first highlight, now it's a corner here in our favour, going far post for Victoros. That one comes off the woodwork, and they must have scrambled it away. Western Sydney Wanderers so far definitely on the front foot, which is nice to see, but still 0-0, albeit, as I was saying, that Western Sydney were starting to mount a comeback a little bit, and now they have a corner of their own. Brilliante makes his way inside the box. It's a scramble there, and Alex Badalato will poke that one home. And I spoke too soon. We go 1-0 down here at CommBank Stadium, albeit there is a VAR check here for offside, and it has been disallowed, that goal, which is a bit surprising. Didn't see anything too obvious, but thankfully we get spared there of our blushes, and it is because someone was offside there from that initial shot, despite the fact that Paulson made a save, and thankfully it's still 0-0. And only a couple of minutes off the back of that disallowed goal, now we are down the other end here with a throw, but unfortunately Cody Phoenix there, the young New Zealander, does rob that one from Callan Elliott, and Badalato this time with a chance to make up for before. He will. That is a brilliant individual goal. Callan Elliott with a poor giveaway there from that throw-in, and we eventually go 1-0 down. And to be fair, off the back of that previous goal that got ruled out, you could kind of see it coming, because that was a bit harsh, I felt like, seeing as Paulson did make the save, but unfortunately our defenders there caught it 6s and 7s, and we go 1-0 down on the half-hour mark. And in a couple of minutes on from that opening goal, Western Sydney here with all the momentum, they have a corner, and there's a push in the back there. I think yet again, Callan Elliott, that looks like a stone-cold penalty. Hopefully Alex Paulson can save these. In real life, he doesn't get beaten often from the penalty spot. We'll see if that holds true in this game, as it is Western Sydney here through Antonsen, who will try and make it 2-0. He needs an upgrade next year because he's way better at saving penalties than that in real life, but they make it 2-0. And so far, Callan Elliott, who throughout the save has been pretty good for us at right back, having a bit of a shocker. His mistakes have led to both goals. We go 2-0 down in the first half. And in fact, right off the back of going 2-0 down, now it's a free kick here as well for the Wanderers. So far, they've been right on the front foot in this game, and we're struggling to clear our lines. Good chance there for Badalato, and it falls to Klur with a second chance, but thankfully that one goes just over the bar. But late surge here from Western Sydney, which we can't keep up with, and it does mean that we'll go into halftime, it looks like, 2-0 behind, but a couple of players out there are really struggling. Callan Elliott, he can come off for Stefan Negro. We've got Gianni Bazookas on a 6.3, Hassan Jallo for him, and Jack Henry Sinclair struggling yet again. Not happy with him. If he played well that previous game, we might still have Ronaldo. So Hitaran can come on this time at right wing. We'll give the boys a serve and hopefully find a way to turn around this 2-0 deficit. And in fact, we might also take off Havales, seeing as Mitchell can play 45 minutes, so 4 subs at half time, as we try and come back from 2-0 down. And up to the hour mark, we've got a highlight here just about to start. A Negro thrown. He's picked up an orange injury. Also, Nick Sullivan on a 6.4, so we might be about to make a sub here, our last one, with still a half hour left, which is not a good sign. But Western Sydney, with that surge just before halftime, do have a pretty commanding 2-0 lead here. Hopefully, we can find a way to get back in this one through this highlight. Big chance there for Hassan Jallow. Puts it over the bar. That was a very good chance. But now, time to make a sub. Unfortunately, don't think we've got any right back options, especially seeing as Jack Henry Sinclair, who can kind of play there. We took off because he was having a shocker. Not too happy with him at the moment. So instead, I think we'll bring on here Taylor Tamer for Nick Sullivan. And also go attacking early, seeing as we're in a spot of bother here with still a half hour left in this game. We're going to go full out attack and try and turn around this 2-0 deficit. And unfortunately, those changes haven't quite worked yet, so I think it's time for us now to go higher tempo as well. But unfortunately, this isn't looking like a good episode for AFC Auckland, as we're still 2-0 behind. And into the last 5 minutes of this game, unfortunately going to that higher tempo and more attacking hasn't worked, albeit stats-wise, definitely a more even game now than it was early stages of the second half, but no highlights of late, and this is a pretty disappointing episode for us, not scoring a goal in 2 games, which is very rare. Maybe should have looked for a striker in the transfer window, but to be fair, couldn't find anyone better than Hassan Jallow anyway, and we suffer our first defeat of the new season, 2-0 to Marco Radan, the Snake, which is a little bit annoying, albeit we did give away a penalty. Callan Elliott there had a bit of a shocker, also giving the ball away for their first goal, which they did score through Badalato, and we suffer there a pretty disappointing 2-0 defeat at Western Sydney, and we are now definitely not on top of the A-League. So a pretty disappointing episode there today with AFC Auckland, that injury to Ronald in that first game, and it looks like Jack Henry Sinclair not quite doing as well this season as he was last season. He struggled in both games in today's episode, especially in that 2-0 loss to Western Sydney, albeit that one might be a bit more at the feet of Callan Elliott, who to be fair up until then has been one of our best players of this save. And other results on this match day do mean we now drop down to 4th after a quite nice start to the season. Interesting to see Avondale still doing a pretty good job of the teams up from the 2nd div. So far, they look the best of them, with South Melbourne and Sydney Olympic down fighting for relegation. Also the Wellington Phoenix starting off the back of a really poor start to the season to pick up some points. They won on that match day that we drew with Western United. That was by a scoreline of 1-0 over the Brisbane Roar. And this week, they pick up a 1-0 draw against the Newcastle Jets in the Sunday fixture. So the Phoenix just outside of the relegation zone. Thankfully, we are still up there. Certainly still in with a shot of picking up the title this season. But that was not a good episode. Hopefully losing Ronaldo won't hurt us too much. Albeit, in between those games, did quite a good job of the All Whites, picking up 2 wins against teams who at the time, out of Africa, were ranked slightly higher than us on the world rankings. If you enjoyed today's episode with all those games, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow and we've got some pretty big games coming up in terms of the New Zealand Derby. We take on the Phoenix, and off the back of taking on the Dandenong Thunder in that 3rd round of the Australian Cup, we will take on the defending champions 2 times in the Central Coast Mariners from Mount Smart. Hopefully for the first time in the save we can pick up a win over those guys, and Ronaldo might even be back for that one, albeit I dare say that will be unlikely, but hopefully we can get back in winning form off the back of today's episode and beat both the Phoenix and the Mariners in tomorrow's episode. So until then, thank you very much for watching, keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.